The 3-part breath I was talking about was you breathe in. So the belly is the place where, rest and digest live. So if we're running, for example, and this goes back to animal brain, reptilian brain, if we're running from a saber-toothed tiger, our lungs create more space. So if you go outside right now and you go for a run, you're going to breathe into your lungs a lot. So essentially, not that running is a fight or flight, but the lungs are where we go in fight or flight. That's where the breath goes. So if you're in a ayahuasca experience and you're panicking, you're essentially in fight or flight, and you're probably breathing into your lungs. It's probably shallow. And if you can anchor that breath back down into your belly, you're telling your body that it's okay to rest and digest. It's okay to relax.
Welcome, tribe. I'm Maya Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions, and be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure.
Welcome. Today, joining us is Sam Gibbs Morris. And Sam, so excited to have you here today. I got to know Sam last year when he came to our Burning Man camp and got to really get to know him just as an individual. He's coming to several of our events, and he even did breathwork at our last event. And so Sam's amazing because not only is he a breathwork specialist, but he's a psychedelic way shower. I love how you say that. And he's also a masculine embodiment guide. So Sam is helping people to access the superconscious in many different ways. And Sam, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
I want to jump right in with your story because when I first got to know you and learn about how you got into breathwork, it really inspired me. So I'd love for you to share your journey with breathwork and why it was important for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I started doing what we know now as breathwork probably 4 or 5 years ago with the long journeys with, like a 3-hour shamanic journey or a 90-minute Wim Hof, whatever it is. And as I started to do that, I started to understand that this was deeper than just breathwork for me. And I couldn't really put a finger on it, but as I was doing work on myself and working back through inner child work, I recognized that I had been doing breathwork every day since I was probably 5 years old. Because when I was born, severe asthma and severe food allergies. So I would eat a peanut or something and my throat would, anaphylaxis would close up. Or if I was having an asthma attack, the doctors would always give me these breathing practices to do to calm my nervous system and bring myself back into regulation. Because the asthma, what happens in the asthma is that the bands around the lung airways constrict. And so what it is that if you can relax those muscles, the airways open back up. So I was given all these practices. And so as I started to educate myself through certifications in breathwork and doing more breathwork myself, I recognized that this was something this is literally, my path has been about breath. And there's so many connections that I can make now, but it started at 5 years old when I had to learn how to breathe properly because of asthma, learn how to regulate myself all the way through adulthood where, I struggled with addiction. And the thing I would always say was, I just feel like I have no breathing room. And I didn't connect any of the dots at the time, but looking back now, my experience of quote unquote having no breathing room is when most of my trapped feeling or struggles come from. It's that feeling of not having enough space to breathe. And so, as I anchored more into breath, I started, my asthma has gone away, my allergies have gone away. All these things have happened since I started actually creating a relationship with my breath, which connecting the dots I've been doing since I was 5 years old.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because we're going to get more into breathwork and how you can use breathwork to access the superconscious. But something for me, I mean, our stories are so similar. I struggled with debilitating asthma for a long time to the point where it would get triggered when I was pregnant. I remember being pregnant with my 4th child and not even being able to sleep more than a couple hours at night because I couldn't breathe and I was struggling so much. And I was allergic to a lot of inhalers. And then I struggled with allergies. And I think something that's really phenomenal is we have this universe that gives us so abundantly the thing that we need to survive in each moment, which is this oxygen. But we have things that limit us, either our asthma or allergies or our mindset. And what was fascinating for me is as I dove more into the mindset stuff, as I dove more into the root of the problem, I realized that much like you, a lot of the asthma and allergies I were experiencing were actually mindset issues.
Yeah.
They were emotionally like rooted. And once I was able to get rid of those, I was able to start breathing and appreciate it so much more. So yeah, I love you sharing that story about breath work and how you got into it, what it means to you.
I have one more thing to add to that. As you were talking about like the mindset and the emotional connection to all these things, they've done studies on people with multiple personality disorders and looked at their individual personalities. And some of them will have asthma or a severe food allergy, and the other literal same physical body, different mindset, personality will not be allergic to peanuts and not have asthma. And I heard that, and I said to myself, there's something, this is not a physical thing. Like there's something more in here I'm attaching this to. And so, you look all the way back to a kid, at some point, having asthma and allergies served my soul. It was something that contract came in and said, we're going to use this to survive or get attention or whatever it is. And so unraveling and unlearning those like nuances in those programs has been huge.
Yeah, well, it's interesting as I look back to when my asthma was really severe. It was a time in my life where I felt really stifled, where I felt like you were saying, like I didn't have breathing room. Like I was mother of 4 young kids, and I was, trying to keep the house together, and I was trying to work, and I was trying to, fit and conform into this box in the culture and religion I was in. And I think for me, it was just feeling like I also, like you, had no breathing room. So it's really fascinating. So I have a couple questions. This is an interesting conversation. So if someone is struggling with breathing, which is a huge thing, because if you can't breathe, you can't do anything. And for those of you who have ever had breathing issues, like me, you just realize you can't focus on anything else. It's like, how am I going to get my next breath? So does breath work actually help people to overcome breathing issues, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I think it's twofold. Like, as humans, we really do, like we can talk here about the emotional stuff and the quantum healing and the energy stuff, all super relevant. And how does that translate back to our physical human experience? Because the breathing is, you want to feel human, like have an asthma attack, you want to feel into that, like a really deep physical experience. The breath is compromised. And so what breathing does in a breathwork practice, it works to expand and relax the lungs. So your lungs get used to having more air in them, or your lungs get used to having less air in them. If you can, and the breath holds that you do during breath work, some of them are designed for stretching and expansion, and the other ones on the exhale are designed for stillness and how well can you be without breath. And so these breathwork practices for me, the physical side is it's practice. It's getting in the arena and breathing bigger breaths and stretching out and expanding the lungs. And then the other side of it is the things that get revealed to you during a breathwork journey or consistent breathwork practice in the morning are the exact things that are going to set you free and create that space for that breathing room emotionally that translates then to more breathing and physically. As you do breath work, you become less reactive. You become in that, I talk a lot about going from reactivity to responsiveness. An asthma attack is a immediate reaction, and the allergic reaction, like they're very immediate. And as humans, if we can formulate the ability to respond, AKA take a breath, then the whole emotional state of our body goes out of fight or flight, and we go into rest and digest. We go into a more effective way of being.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so proud of myself. Just last night, I went to breath work and I was holding my breath. I think the longest I've held my breath during breath work was 3.5 minutes. But for me, that's a huge win, because I think about the moments in my life where I felt like I couldn't even hold my breath for 0.3 seconds. I was like,
totally.
Struggle to breathe. But the other fascinating thing that happened last night at breathwork, and this has happened to me a lot, is that experience where I do have that. I think it's like a DMT burst, and I feel like this immediate connection to source, to spirituality, my higher self. Last night, I was getting some clarity on this mastermind that we're doing around the psychedelic space. And all of the sudden, as I was holding my breath, it was like in this white light, and I got this vision and clarity. And I remember the first time this ever happened, I was actually at Rhythmia, which is a licensed ayahuasca facility down in Costa Rica. And as part of the experience, you're doing ayahuasca, which has DMT in it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're also doing this breath work. And I had these amazing experiences during ayahuasca, but one of the most profound ones was during breath work, which was after the ayahuasca ceremony. And this was when I held my breath 3.5 minutes, the entire song, the song that I knew. And I went and looked afterwards and I'm like, that's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I did it. But during that time, I remember as I was doing breath work and getting started, I felt super hungry. And all I could focus on was how hungry my stomach was. As I did this breath hold, suddenly I had, again, for me, it was this feeling of like this burst of white light.
Yeah.
And this voice came and says, you're not hungry for food. You're hungry for your own self-acceptance.
Oh.
You've been starving yourself your entire life from your own love and your own self-acceptance. And it was like, what? And I remember every cell of my body was like recalibrating to this message that I got, like, damn, it's not the food, it's the self-love.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you have a lot of experiences like these with people. And I want to talk about that because as we're talking about this show, psychedelic sex and the superconscious, and I know you work a lot with psychedelics. I'd love to hear your take on that too. But breath work can be psychedelic, right?
Yeah, I would say it is psychedelic. Like holotropic breathwork, for example, is kind of like one of the OGs there. And holotropic simply means a altered state of consciousness. Psychedelics provide the same thing, gets you to that same place. That's why people talk about getting high on your own supply. And because what the experience that you had, our lungs and our brain are the two places endogenously that we produce DMT. So that's why a lot of dreams can be pretty intense, almost like a DMT trip, because little like hits of DMT are coming into your dreams. And then you activate DMT as well in the lungs. When you can expand your lungs and there's a lot of, stale or stagnant air in those, like the ends of the lungs. And so when you breathe into deep or you breathe in a rhythmical pattern, every bit of your lungs gets opened up. And what happens is DMT gets released into your body. So you have that experience. So yes, breath work, I think that there's this, not disconnection, but we like to compartmentalize. Oh, if I didn't ingest a medicine, it's not a psychedelic experience, when we have access to the psychedelic experience with our breath all the time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is phenomenal because you can do it anywhere. You can do breath work when you wake up in the morning. You can do it when you go to bed. And although I think psychedelics have an amazing place for helping us access the superconscious, sometimes that takes time or recovery time or space. And really, the breath work can be a quick way of doing it. So, I want to have this conversation with you about how breath work helps us access the superconscious, because we have this DMT release. So, first of all, I'd love to hear, like, what does the superconscious mean for you, and how does breath work help you access, or how do you help other people as you lead them through breath work access that state?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to go back for a second and tie it forward. I think one of the beauties and the power of breath work is that there's not a medicine involved, a medicine, quote unquote, that we ingest externally. When you take someone through breath work, like they literally, if, with a medicine, if you drink ayahuasca or take mushrooms, you're committed for 8 to 9 hours. Whereas with breath work,
after I do that, I'm like, oh crap, I'm in this ride for hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what did I do? Why did I take
that feeling? That's real. And, so there's that. So with breath work, people, like, you immediately have trust because it's your body. And so, if you're in breath work and it's too intense, you breathe normally and you're back in 30 seconds or so. The other side of that, though, is I think there's nothing to put the experience on. It's all you. And so I think with a lot of psychedelics, and I use them all the time. I serve them. They're super powerful and they're amazing. And there can be a tendency to say, oh, that download came, but it was on the mushrooms. With breath, it's all you. It's all you did it yourself. There's nothing else going on. And I think there's massive power and trust in that. So when you talk about accessing the superconscious and this, like, what it means is how much. So the way to get there, and the way that I lead people to get there, is through energy movement, because the superconscious cannot, like, for me, the superconscious is like a flow state with source, where you're just like those moments when your intuition is on point and you're aware and you're not being driven by any kind of stories or anything like that. And you can be essentially it's that, you know how you hear about animals that like there's a tsunami in Thailand maybe 10 years ago, and there was no elephants that were harmed at all because they all 3 days prior went to higher ground. And I feel as humans, when we can get closer to that, when we can get closer to that level of consciousness where we're tapped into our surroundings and the people around us and our workflow and everything is feeling so good, that's when we're tapped into the superconscious. Now, breath work is energy. Breath is energy. Breath is spirit. Respiration, the root word there is spirit. So when we can tap into spirit and source through the breath, create that, and then move that energy through our body, removing blocks somatically, emotionally, mentally, physically, that hold us back from being able to tap into the superconscious.
Yeah, I like that. And I think you bring up a couple of really good points with this as well. So how I like to think about the superconscious is like the conscious brain's like our computer, it's everything we can see in front of us. The superconscious is like all the, hard drive systems that are running that make, whatever appears on the computer appear. And then the superconscious is like the Wi-Fi network. That's information out there that we would like normally not have access to. And this is why I think some of my most profound moments have come during breathwork, where it's like I burst through that superconscious and just access, or subconscious and access the superconscious. Question with breathwork have you found that intention is important with breathwork? Is it important to go into breathwork with an intention? Like you mentioned psychedelics, and sometimes people say, well, this is because of the mushrooms or because of this or because of that. I have found, and one of my pet peeves, when people use things and they're like, well, that was the vehicle, that was the medicine. No, the medicine is within us. So I love what you're saying about the breath work and not really being the medicine within us. But, is it important to set an intention? Is that going to give direction? Do you see better results if you're setting an intention during work?
Yeah, I would say anytime you do anything in life, if you become intentional about it, you're going to have a better result. Breathwork especially, because the power of intention that I've landed on is that it removes the expectation. So intention and expectation can get real murky. Like, we think like, oh, I have this intention to look at my anxiety, but really the expectation is make my anxiety go away. And so a lot of these things, when we have the intention, like the intention could be, okay, what do I not know about my anxiety, as opposed to just take my anxiety? Because what the intention does is it opens you up to the possibility of things that you don't know and whatever else is there for you to know about. With expectation, you pigeonhole yourself into like, it's this one thing and that's it. If I don't get it, it didn't work or it's a bad experience. Whereas intention is the thing also. So going in, it sets you up for a more open experience. And then when you have a really solid intention, I've found it helps you to push through those moments when the breath work gets difficult or the trip gets, quote unquote, goes in the bad direction. If you can anchor back into that intention, it really will keep you anchored and keep you moving forward and keep you in the light, so to speak, of give you the willingness to stay in it. Because there's moments in all kinds of journeys where you're like, oh, I'm done. I don't want to do it. It's too much work. And so you think about like, well, I came here for this, and have I gotten there yet? Or what else is there? What am I not seeing? And so having that intention as your jumping off point is massive, because it really does kind of sets the tone for the whole thing.
Yeah. I like to think of intention like the question that you type into your search engine for accessing the Wi-Fi. I almost feel like with anything, with breathwork, with psychedelics, if you don't have an intention to, you're kind of leaving yourself open to like whatever's out there. It's like, okay, go find something on the Wi-Fi now. Well, there's so much information out there. And it's like the intention gives the direction. It's like the question that you're asking to go in, so that when you're, out there and the super conscious kind of go floating back and forth, you're like, okay, this is the thing that I want my brain to like figure out or find out, or the answer I want to get. The other thing about breathwork, I think this is so fascinating. I think in a lot of ways, breathwork actually requires more determination. And it creates strength because, like you said, like if you commit, like you're going into a psilocybin journey or going into ayahuasca journey, it's like you are committed. And even if you don't want to be in it, you're like, I'm still here. Like I have no choice. I've taken it. It's going to be in my system till it gets out, right? It's like your choice in every single moment. In any moment, you could stop doing the breath work. You could say, I'm done. And that's why I love going to breathwork classes where the breathwork facilitator is like, come on, you got this. Like you can push through, you can do it. Yeah. And I feel like it teaches me that I'm strong when I can do that breath work. It teaches me that I can do hard things. And so in a way, I think breath work actually requires more determination and more strength sometimes than doing psychedelics, because you choose to stay in it in every moment.
I love that so much. It's so beautiful. It's so true. Like, translate that to life. We literally have a choice with every breath we make. Are we in or are we out? Are we doing this or are we not? And so, you can translate that to relationships. Like, in every moment when the conversation gets hard, are you choosing in or are you choosing out? And breath work does. It builds that massive trust in your human body, because it's all you and it's all your choice. And I love that you said that, not only can come out of it when we want to, but we can also choose to stay in it. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And man, breath work, going last night, I had incorporated breath work for a while. In fact, I didn't even do the breath work session that you did at our last event. So I think I was back, making sure doors were closed and whatever. So it's been a while since I've done breath work, but I used to do breath work every day. And this conversation just inspired me to be like, why don't I do this every day? I was thinking about this last night as I was in this breath work experience. I'm having this huge burst of DMT. I'm getting so much clarity on something that I've been trying to figure this out for months. And all of a sudden I go 45 minutes into breath work and I get the whole download. This is what it is. Wait, why am I not doing this every day? Why am I not doing this every week? And there's no recovery time. There's no, side effects. So, as you know, I'm a huge fan of psychedelics when used properly. And also it requires time and it requires recovery sometimes. The breath work feel great immediately afterwards and ready to go. So the nice thing about breath work too is I get the downloads and then have the energy to actually do them right away. So that's amazing. So I want to shift this conversation a little bit now to include some psychedelics, because you also are a psychedelic facilitator. You've used psychedelics. You've helped people in the psychedelic space. So I would love to just transition the conversation by having you say, what do you feel like is the difference between breathworks and psychedelics? I know this is a huge question, but when do you use breathwork, personally in your life, and when do you use personally in your life? How do you know, when do you use breathwork versus psychedelics? Why? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start with my experiences. So breathwork is those big journeys. I do those probably 6 times a year, maybe, a big 45-minute an hour journey. I mean, to them, I treat them like a psychedelic ceremony where integration is important. I also do breathwork daily. And
hold on. I want to pause for just a second, because you said something that I think is really important, but I think is overlooked in breathwork a lot. Integration is important.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to presence that, because I feel like people don't often integrate with breath work. So, okay, continue on. Make sure and integrate with breath work.
Yeah. It's that, and each modality, so to speak, gets a different type of integration. Ayahuasca is a much longer integration, where breath work is you had one download, it came in, it was clear. Your integration is, how do I implement that? How do I not let that go by the wayside? And that's essentially what integration is. So breathwork for me in relation to psychedelics, obviously it's more accessible, it's free, you can do it anytime. I feel that it's a little more digestible to people, because the conversation's not as, quote unquote scary about, a lot of people get really nervous about doing psychedelics, but and this is where breathwork becomes a kind of an entry point into these holotropic or altered states of consciousness. It's more trustworthy, because you can say okay, I'm going to do a 30-minute breathwork journey and get someone right there where they learn to trust. And the next time they come back, they're like, oh my God, this was amazing. It was 45 minutes. And they learn, you learn how to get that rhythm going in that pattern. And so breathwork, I would say outside of psychedelics, is a great way to develop trust and holding yourself, regulating yourself. And I would say, it's energetic movement. And so anytime that we can move energy through our body, we clear ourselves, and then that sets us up better for a clean psychedelic experience. Now, breathwork also, sometimes in a mushroom journey, when I'm guiding people, I'll have them do a little bit of breathwork. Bufo, there's no time for that, because it's a little more intense. And then also, I found that breathwork is these psychedelic things, the medicines, they'll bring up things for us, and they'll kind of churn up energy in our body. Breathwork is a great integration tool, because it kind of can go into your body and like any energetic shrapnel, I call it, that's left over will continuously be cleared and cleared by using breathwork through integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a couple things you said in there that I really want to just drop in a little bit deeper about. And one is the use of breath work in a psychedelic space. I know in some of the sessions that Gerald and I lead, we'll actually use breath work as the medicine's taking effect. And it seems to give the mind a focus. Sometimes I feel like you have or people can have monkey mind going into these psychedelic experiences. And it's like wherever your mind is, that's what's going to perpetuate. So if you're worrying about something, it's going to feel like it's worrying times 100, right? Or you're afraid of something, it's like fear times 100. But there's this focus when you're doing breath and really focusing on the breath that doesn't allow the brain to focus on some of those other things that it could going into the journey with. I was talking with someone the other day and she said, I felt like I had a whole waste of a journey because I was mad at my friend going into the journey, didn't take the time to clear it, went into the journey space. And the whole time, all I can think about is how mad I am at my friend, how I'm going to kick her out of this group. And she's like, of course, not going to kick her out of the group. But she's like, I feel like I just wasted this really powerful opportunity to rewire and focus my brain on some of the things that I want. I spent wasted time on worrying about something and having a problem perpetuated in my mind.
Yeah.
And so we actually did an experience with her and had breath work at the beginning of it. And she said it was phenomenal because all the thoughts, all the worries just left her mind. She's just focusing on the breath so she could be fully embodied in the experience. And that allowed her, when the experience set in, for her to be open to the intention that she was wanting to receive. So I think that breath work can be really powerful. What specific psychedelics would you recommend using breath work as you're going into these psychedelics?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love how you touched on how getting into the body before the medicine kicks in is so big because, it can get, especially mushrooms, I feel, can get super heady. And anytime that we can tap it, like essentially open up the body and give it space, the thoughts just naturally kind of fall away. So I love that. I love that you guys are bringing that in. It's amazing. So I feel that there's kind of two ways that can go. One is like you said, like in the mushroom or like a journey like that, to have it as an activation or a clearing or an entry point is amazing because it will kind of kick off the DMT experience. It'll give the person a euphoric kind of feeling that really does move the energy out of their head into their body and allows them to drop in. And, if they do a 30 or 45 minute breathwork journey, and then by the time they're done with that, most likely the medicine's kicked in and they're on their way, and it ends up being beautiful. I feel that there's also times like in an ayahuasca journey, for example, when things get really crazy, and you're just in one of those places. If it's possible, talk about 3-part breath. So it's a very grounding, centering, because really what in the ayahuasca, when you're in those times when it's murky and dark and all that, if you can anchor into your breath, it will very quickly calm you and bring you back.
Well, that's interesting. And I think this brings up a good point too, is what kinds of breath work do you use when? Yeah. And so for me, using the holotropic breath work, like at the beginning of a psilocybin journey, like you said, helps clear the energy and it helps me to be more embodied. But I love what you said about using the 3-part breath, like during ayahuasca. So the 3-part, just to make sure I understand this, because this is what 3-part breathing means to me. I want to make sure this is what you're doing now, where you take a deep breath in through your nose, and then you release it in 3 even parts. Like, is that what you're talking about?
That's one of them. Yeah. That's not the one I was talking about, but like anytime that you can, like really what it is, it's like cold plunging as well. If you get into a cold plunge and you immediately do that, you're kind of screwed because that's how it's going to go. So for that, like if you can take that big breath in, because what we do when we get stressed or when we're experiencing something like that is we tend to, our breath gets really short and out of control. So we kind of be like short inhales, long exhales, or vice versa. So that 3-part breath that you mentioned is really great because it kicks on the rest and digest. So it kicks on, like, it slows your body down and says, okay, we got this, we're good. Then the controlled out breath gives you that sense of control, basically, and feeling out of control. The 3-part breath I was talking about was you breathe in. So the belly, the lower belly, is the place where, rest and digest live. So if we're running, for example, and this goes back to animal brain, reptilian brain, if we're running from a saber-toothed tiger, we're going to breathe. Our lungs create more space. So if you go outside right now and you go for a run, you're going to breathe into your lungs a lot. So essentially, not that running is a fight or flight, but the lungs are where we go in fight or flight. That's where the breath goes. So if you're in a ayahuasca experience and you're panicking, you're essentially in fight or flight, and you're probably breathing into your lungs. It's probably shallow. And if you can anchor that breath back down into your belly, you're telling your body that it's okay to rest and digest. It's okay to relax. So you're kind of taking back control of your emotions. So what you do is you breathe into the belly, and then into the solar plexus, and then into the chest. And then you bring it back down. So it's belly, solar plexus, chest, solar plexus, belly. And what this does is it moves energy up and down your vagal nerve. So the vagal nerve goes from the throat to the root chakra. And so when you move that breath up and then move that breath down, you're regulating your vagus nerve, or activating your vagus nerve and regulating your emotions, and you're bringing yourself back into rest and digest.
That's really fascinating. And one of the things, so I taught yoga for years, and one of the things that I always taught, because this is what studies have proved, when you really focus on your breath, like you can't breathe and be stressed at the same time. Your body just calm down, like your blood pressure lowers, your heart rate lowers. This is a fantastic tool to use when you're in the journey and you're feeling overcome by the panic or the fear. And what I like about this as well is that breathing is something that we can all do, even like in the deepest journey where we have to breathe to survive. And it's such a function that our body's so used to that we can just come right back into that breath and breathe. So I'm definitely going to use that. So using like the holotropic at the beginning, like with the psilocybin, if something is getting crazy and you're feeling off-centered, find yourself like breathing shallowly or breathing quickly during the journey, doing that. I love that 3-part breath where you inhale into the belly, solar plexus, chest, and exhale, chest, solar plexus, belly. Yeah. And I also like even just talking about, I can imagine it gets the mind like in this calming rhythm. And really bring you back into center. Yeah.
I mean, and what you were talking about with the activation that you do in your journeys, like it's essentially both of these things are getting us out of here and into here, out of the head and into the heart. That's what breath work does. We can't breathe through our heads. It's the nose and the mouth, but the actual breath gets processed and moved through in our bodies. And so anytime, I think, and this, now we can translate this to a life skill. Like, where in your life are you like at a business meeting and you're starting to panic a little bit, or, feeling anxious in the morning? Like, take 3 minutes and breathe, and just get yourself back into a regulated state.
Yeah, I like that. And it really, the breath work you can do anywhere. You can do it in your car if you're feeling stressed out. You can do it. Nobody has to know that you're doing breath work. The Zito meditation, you have to close your eyes and time away. People are going to notice that you're doing the office. People are going to be looking. What are you doing?
I could go 2 ways. People are like, what's going on there? Or I want to be in there.
Yeah, right. Well, and let's talk about breath work as a post-journey tool, because this is really, arrhythmia, this is where I had my deepest download of, I did 3 days of ayahuasca, right? And the journeys were phenomenal. I got lots of information. But if someone were to ask me what was the most profound experience that I had over my time that I spent there, I would pinpoint it to that breathwork experience. And it was after the journey. So, there may have still been some DMT in my system. And of course, the natural breathwork's bringing some more natural DMT, but that was the most profound moment for me. And I almost felt like the breathwork was the integration. So how do you use breathwork to integrate after?
Yeah, specifically what I do is I give the people that I'm working with, my clients, about 30 days with grounding breaths, with like a daily practice that's not too intense, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, something like that, with, breath and meditation, something that keeps them calm, keeps them regulated. And then at about the 30-day mark, I'll take them through a big breathwork journey, because that's about what I found is about the point where kind of life shows back up. We have psychedelic experience, and it's, most of the time what I've seen is that, people are really lit up, they're really light, they're really, inspired and motivated. And then they come back down a little bit from that initial wave. And that's when it's, for me, what I've found is it's great, because that's when really old energies, old behaviors, old programs will start to show back up. And when it feels to them like they're like back at ground zero. They're not. It's a whole new baseline. The little hooks that are left, or the little anchors that are left from past behaviors, past thought, are simply, it's the ego trying to hang on to something. Familiar hell, unfamiliar heaven. And so at about 30 days, I find it's super helpful to bring them into like a full breathwork journey where they have the experience that you had last night, where it's like clearing, and like they get to kind of recalibrate to the visions and the downloads that they experienced in the psychedelic journey that may have been forgotten about, or just, life shows up and integration gets a little weird, and this is the way it happens. And so anchoring back into that state, and it really does, it anchors them into the clearing, the cleanliness energetically they felt in their body at about 30 days. So it reintegrates, it kind of like, not reintegrates, it recalibrates them to what their intention was at the very beginning, because it continuously clears the energy.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much, because something that I'm really passionate about is the integration. I feel like the integration is just as important as the journey. And so many people overlook that. They think I've done the journey. That's it. Like that was my thing. But so often our brain is still trying to figure out what's going on. Our body's still trying to recalibrate to these new, neural pathways, these new ways of being. And so doing a grounding breathwork practice every day, I'm just feeling that in my body right now. Just noticing like how good that feels to even think about doing a grounding breathwork, and then to revisit it 30 days after with the breathwork experience to kind of bring people back to that. What would you say, like reminder of what they learned, or back into that state?
I would say a reminder is a great one. Reminder, because, it really allows them to, one, it gives them a marker of like, wow, I actually have come pretty far. Because again, people think, if they haven't done the integration properly, they're going to feel the pull of like the old self or the lower self a lot. And so if you can bring them out of that lower self and back in the higher self, it's, first of all, it's going back to what we talked about earlier. It's like, oh wait, I can do this anytime. Okay, I can tap back into this. It keeps elevating the baseline. Whereas, a lot of times you can fall down below the baseline. And the more that you can remember like the downloads that come in, or even if there's like new things, new alignments, like you say, you did a psychedelic journey, downloads come in, you get cleared energetically, and you have this new vision, new purpose. Where am I now 30 days out? Where am I wavering? Or how can I recalibrate to like whatever it was I saw in that psychedelic experience? And what new information do I have now 30 days later? And so the intention may change a little bit, the vision may change a little bit, and it continuously, it's tapping back in the superconscious whenever we can, and really opening up whatever it is we need to open up so that we can receive more of that.
Wow. Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation today. First of all, just the reminder of how important breath work is, and just the gratitude for being able to breathe in general. And here are my main takeaways today. First of all, is that breath work is a natural and effective way to access the superconscious, to get that DMT dump into the brain. And so it doesn't have any side effects. Like there's no recovery time. I was about to say it's like an easy way, but in some ways it's harder because it does require more commitment in each moment, but it's going to teach you how you can be committed, how you can do hard things. And breathwork is a microcosm of the macrocosm. Like if you can stick with it, choose to do the breath in each moment, then you're going to show up in other areas of your life. So I love that. And I really, really valued our conversation on how to integrate breathwork with psychedelic experiences. This is really fascinating to me. I realized that we've been doing some of it, but, with the holotropic breathing at the beginning to get out of the head and into the body. But I love the 3-part calming breathing, especially when you get to that point in a journey where it's just tough.
Yeah.
Like be just really struggling and facing some fears, and it might feel like too much, but coming back to that breath and doing that 3-part breathing in the middle of the journey, really bringing you back to center so that you can continue the journey, so that you can receive the downloads, so that you can continue to work through whatever you're working through. And then having breath work at the end of journeys to help integrate with the grounding breath, and then doing breath work 30 days later is phenomenal. I'm definitely going to start implementing that. So thank you for those so much. Is there anything else that wants to come through you right now? Anything else you want to mention or say before we end our conversation today?
Yeah, 2 things came in. One is, I think a lot of these, and, there's very experienced people and there's some not so experienced people on this path. And I think that anytime that we can just allow what's coming through, allow yourself to be a beginner, allow yourself to figure out the 3-part breath, allow yourself to wade into the waters as much as possible without thinking you have to go full send on it right away. Oftentimes, we want to make that jump from 0 to 100, and honestly, maybe 40 miles an hour is probably the best for us at that moment. This goes into the cultivating capacity and range. And then the second thing is surrender to it. When you commit to an experience, be all there and surrender and really allow yourself to fully be in the experience that you're having.
Well, thank you so much. And I just really want a presence and thank you for the work that you're doing in this world through the breath work and also through the psychedelic space. I know you work with men's empowerment as well. I just have to speak to this because it was so amazing when you were here and you stayed at our house during this last event, breath work that we did. And I could just feel your presence, like this strong, rounded, like masculine space holder. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for the work that you're doing with men as well. Definitely recommend anybody listening, follow Sam Gibbs Morris on Instagram, on social media. Your content's amazing. So it's been an honor to be with you today, Sam. Thank you so much.
And thank you for those kind words. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for creating this space. And this conversation has been absolutely amazing. Love you guys so much.
Love you. Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.